Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the St. Clair County briefing. We apologize for the delay today. We had a little technical difficulties. I'm Brian Whitaker, the Assistant Director of Emergency Management here in St. Clair County. I'm joined by Greg Nimmo. He is the Chief of the Recovery Division for the Illinois Emergency Management Agency. And we're here to give you a little update today on how we've been responding to the federally declared flooding disaster here in St. Clair County and provide some important information as the deadline is quickly approaching, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely. The deadline that we have right now, there's two actual deadlines. December the 16th, the Caseyville Disaster Recovery Center, referred to as the DRC, will close. It's open Monday through Friday, 9 to 3. So this Friday, 3 p.m. will be that Disaster Recovery Center will be closed, which is where you can walk in to get your assistance with FEMA and register and do those things. The second date that everybody needs to be aware of, and this is the final date for everyone, and that's December the 22nd. That's when the East St. Louis Disaster Recovery Center will close there at the Clyde Jones Center. That will close, and it's open 8 to 6, Monday through Friday, Saturday 9 to 3. But next Thursday, December the 22nd, that one will close at 6 p.m. in the evening, and then the DRCs will be closed here locally for walking in and registering or getting assistance.
So we had a couple town hall meetings last week, one in Caseyville, one in East St. Louis, and there were some questions that came up there, and something I think is really important to notice. So December 22nd, the key to that day is you must be registered by then. We don't expect that everyone will be fully completed with their process and everything done, but that registration is what has to be completed, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. When you register with FEMA, there's actually three processes you kind of go through. The very first step is you can go to the Disaster Recovery Center, either Caseyville or East St. Louis, or you can call in on their phone number, which is 1-800 let me find it real quick. 1-800-621-3362. Again, 1-800-621-3362. And you can go to that phone number and get assistance there. But December the 22nd, 6 p.m. is the last moment to do that, to get registered. And that three-process step is when you call to register with FEMA, you talk with them, you give them some fundamental information, your address, a little bit of additional data that they're going to ask for, and that starts the clock for you to say that you're eligible to continue on. When December the 22nd actually closes, the work continues. Probably for the next 60, 90 days, there'll still be work ongoing behind the scenes where people will be wrapping up the process of receiving funds and getting denials and things like that, working through appeals and things that they have to do.
So as all of our residents are working through this process, we've had a substantial amount of residents that have already received assistance. Is that not true?
Yeah, there's over 8,000 people that have registered. When we came into this event, quite honestly, we thought it'd be about half that or maybe a little less, but we've doubled that number. We've really worked intensely on outreach to make sure that we leave no stone unturned, that everybody's aware that you need to get in and register and make sure that you do everything you can. If you experience flooding on July 25th or 28th, that you do what you can to try and get registered to see if there's any FEMA assistance available for you.
And of those residents you've talked about, more than $21 million worth of assistance has been distributed.
Yeah, in fact, we're at $23.5 million today. We've had a little bit over $18 million distributed in the individual assistance through FEMA, which is grant funds, which do not require any payback. There's also been a little bit over $4 million in SBA loans for those who qualify or eligible, or if a loan's a right fit for them at the time. And then we've had over $1.1 million in flood insurance paid out. So again, that totals about $23.5 million to date. So to say that there's no money coming is not true. So getting registered is key to get your share if you're found eligible.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that SBA process, because a lot of people hear the Small Business Administration, what can they do to help me? And there's actually some money left on the table right now for people that haven't followed through the processes.
Yeah, in fact, we've identified approximately 3,000 people in number that have actually contacted FEMA originally and registered, but never followed up past that, because there's two additional steps that may take place in order for you to actually get into the funding. Whether it's getting you into a loan, if that's a good fit for you, or if it's not a good fit for you, maybe being able to work through FEMA to get some grant assistance through the other needs assistance programs, what they call it. But again, right now there's about 3,000 people in St. Clair County that have not followed up.
And what you're seeing is they get referred to the loan step and they don't want a loan, so rather than working through it and determining that it's not a good fit for them, they just stop. And really they're ending their process if they don't continue.
Absolutely. We're seeing that as an issue where, as you just indicated, when people come in and they register at FEMA, one of the questions they're going to ask, what is your annual income? If you're on a fixed income, it's not a lot of money. So to say you're going to go out and get a $100,000 loan is probably not realistic. but you still more than likely will get referred to the SBA, which is called Small Business Administration, also works for individuals in disaster. And what they do is they verify your incomes, verify everything that you've told FEMA to that date, and they screen to see if you're eligible for a loan, if it's a good fit for you. And if not, then they immediately refer you back over to FEMA for the individual assistance, which would allow you then to potentially get some grant fund assistance, which doesn't require any payback.
Well, and let's talk about another concern that we've heard from residents, denial letters. Denial letters are common in the FEMA process, aren't they not?
They are, because this transpires so quickly and data exchanges so quick, and there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of things we're doing. We're post-disaster, so it's not like you can walk out and see all the damage to everybody's house if they've already done some cleanup or done some things to make it better. So in that case, there's always that issue where you may get a no from FEMA. If you do, realize a no really just means that you need to do an appeal. A no doesn't mean that you're totally ineligible at that point. It just means take time, do an appeal. If you really think you're justified, maybe FEMA's missed something or it wasn't explained well or they didn't understand it. So the appeal just gets you back into the process to double check to make sure, hey, is there any way that I'm eligible because I don't think you looked at this matter.
And then we've had several people that have come off appeals and then been funded and received, whether it be grant funds or a loan or some type of assistance. And one last thing I want to talk about as it relates to this whole process is the misconception that this FEMA process is supposed to make you 100% whole. It's supposed to give you back everything that you lost.
Right, and it's not. The FEMA concept when you receive grant funds are to get you back on your feet to the road to recovery, to make you safe and secure is kind of the issue. If you had a lot of fancy things before the flood, and unfortunately the flood took them out, FEMA's going to get you back to having a couch, get you back to having a stove. If your transportation applies, if it's flooded, they're going to help you fix getting that repaired or potentially purchase something else. They're going to do the minimum things to get you back on your feet so you can start your own road to recovery. It's not designed to make you whole. It's to give you that jump start you need to get to the next step.
Okay. And as people work through those processes, it's important for them to understand that if they have questions, you mentioned that phone number earlier, 1-800-621 FEMA, correct? 3362. And you can call that number and ask those questions and get answers to something that might be confusing to you or concerning to you. And that's what we dealt with when we had those town hall meetings over the last couple of weeks, was people that were confused by the process or didn't understand why they were denied when they should have received assistance. It's very important for them to understand that there are people there to help them. Even when the disaster recovery centers close, there will be people there to help them, but you have to be registered. You
Right.
have to make sure that you're on that list.
Which is December the 22nd at 6 p.m. If you are not registered with FEMA, regardless if you've talked to the SBA or gone through the grant assistance process of additional funds, if you're not registered, which is simply a phone call or stopping in one of those centers, you will not be eligible at that point and you will be out completely for any assistance.
And Greg, something that got a lot of feedback during the town hall meetings and something that's going to go on for months and years now is mitigation. Well, let's talk a few minutes about mitigation and what we're doing from a county level to all the different municipalities and communities. That part of this is this declaration included mitigation funds to help the municipalities kind of build back better.
Right. So mitigation, again, like you just said, is simply build back better. So every disaster that happens under FEMA, there are mitigation funds that follow. So depending on how much money is dispersed, you get up to 15% of that back in funds that you can spend to correct the problems that caused the issue in the first place. So I know the county's already applied through our mitigation program at IEMA, put an application in for the purpose of beginning to study this complete area. I know the hardened ditch is referred to a lot, and maybe that is or isn't the entire problem, but the goal is to do a complete study with the county, the state, and FEMA from the north end of that area all the way to the southern end of that area, determine what the issues are, and then begin a phased approach to come back and fix those things in the proper order so that we can reverse this issue for long-term disaster.
Yeah, nothing anyone ever is going to do is going to completely eliminate flooding. We have seen record rainfalls, 100-year floods every 2-3 years.
Right.
So nothing is going to completely eliminate it, but it's important to know that the communities are working, the county's working, the state, FEMA, everyone's working together to try and identify some of those hazards and work to mitigate those to make things better so maybe next time the flood isn't quite as impactful.
Right.
Do we have any questions that have come in?
Got a couple, Greg. One viewer wants to know some of the other reasons why citizens were being denied. Any off the top of your head? I know you mentioned a couple of them, maybe not following through. Is there anything else that we can share with them?
Right. Really, the biggest reason for denial is that people aren't following through properly, or they're missing a piece of information. Along with that, Herb, goes the fact that people tend to get phone calls from strange numbers. Because when FEMA brings staff to town, they bring them from all over the country. So it's possible you might have a Texas phone number pop up on your phone, but you need to answer that. Because if you don't answer the question, and it could be as simply as maybe you've left a number off on your Social Security for your application or something. And if you've done that, that's going to disqualify you, and you'll get a denial letter saying you're denied for improper information. So it's always important, if you get a denial, that just means no for now. Do that appeal, figure out what the issue is. It could be that simple. And if you get a strange phone call right now, I would advise you to answer it, or make sure you got a voicemail to get it and call it back.
Well, I think the important thing is shown the funds have been spent. There have been a lot of the citizens receive that help. They have filled out their applications, or they've been able to come to the DRC, get the help they needed. So that's the message today. You know, get there, get it taken care of before you lose out. And there was another comment that the town hall meetings were very beneficial and so much information. So I think the town halls were good, and that's why you guys are continuing to do these briefings like this.
Absolutely. And I do want to mention one more thing about the town halls. What we discovered as IEMA and FEMA and as the county that day, that people have taken some information from maybe a neighbor. Maybe a neighbor did legitimately get denied, and they're kind of upset, you know, so they spread the word saying, oh, they're not going to give anything if you don't go down there. I want you to be aware that every case is an individual case-by-case scenario. They look at the incomes, they look at the ability to pay back if it's a loan. If you don't have the ability, they may refer you over to FEMA for grant fund assistance, which doesn't have to be paid back. So please keep in mind, every case is individual. And again, if you don't register by the 22nd at 6 p.m., you won't have a chance to get anything, I guarantee that. So make sure you take your case as an individual case, go in there and see people, or call that number, the 1-800-621-3362.
Well, Greg, we thank you and your staff for being here today, being here in St. Clair County every day for the past several months as we've worked through this process with FEMA. And that's the message we want to leave you with today. If you haven't done so yet, get registered. If your neighbor hasn't got registered, help them get registered. If a family member that lives in St. Clair County hasn't been registered, help them get registered. The most important thing you can do is get registered by December 22nd. You can call the phone number. You can visit one of the disaster recovery centers here in St. Clair County. You can go online to disasterassistance.gov, or you can download the FEMA app and apply for assistance. Any one of those ways, in the next 30 minutes, you can be registered for this and be included in trying to get some assistance through this flood. So, Greg, thank you for being here. We will continue to bring the latest information that we have as it relates to ongoing disasters here in St. Clair County, and we thank you for following us.
Thank you.